She steps into the room, not to belong, but to command. The air tightens when she speaks. Her tone cuts with authority, yet lacks empathy. Some call her entitled, others say spoiled. But beneath lies something more complex. This isn't just an internet meme. The Karen represents a psychological pattern wearing human skin. Outwardly, she appears as a middle-aged woman upset over trivial matters, a delayed appointment, a wrong coffee order, a store policy she believes doesn't apply to her. Yet these outbursts are symptoms of something deeper, a pathology of control. To understand her, look beyond her actions to her belief system. At her core lies a profound fragility of identity. The Karen archetype isn't born, it's manufactured through cultural conditioning, social expectations, an unchallenged narrative of superiority. She learned that the world should work for her. When it doesn't, she perceives it not as inconvenience, but as injustice. Entitlement becomes her armor. What looks like rudeness is often defense against an invisible fear, irrelevance. To a Karen, being ignored feels like erasure. Her voice must be heard not for communication, but for affirmation of her importance. She often comes from environments where dominance was praised and submission scorned, where having standards meant demeaning others, where being a strong woman meant being louder, colder, and quicker to assert than to understand. This upbringing creates a mind that can't tolerate ambiguity, only hierarchy. She needs to know who's above and who's below. In her worldview, she's rarely, if ever, below. This plays out in daily encounters. She doesn't complain to the server, she demands the manager. Not because the issue is catastrophic, but because someone lower must be punished for disrupting her comfort. Her world is binary. Those who serve and those who are served. She believes she's the latter. Where does this internal belief originate? Often from childhood overvaluation, not necessarily love, but conditional praise. Performance rewarded over presence. Being daddy's princeps meant being exceptional without needing to be kind. She learned that identity is transactional value, comes from status, appearances, and others obeying expectations. In adulthood, when the real world stops mirroring her childhood conditioning, she unravels. The barista doesn't care who she is. The clerk won't bend rules. The neighbor won't apologize for existing loudly. Suddenly, the world becomes threatening. Every moment that doesn't affirm her worth feels like personal attack. She responds not with reflection, but escalation. Psychologists link these behaviors to narcissistic traits, often vulnerable narcissism. A quieter but corrosive belief that her needs matter more, that she deserves more, and that any failure to recognize this is disrespect. Here's the paradox. Beneath the narcissism lies deep insecurity. The louder she shouts, the more fragile she is. The more she demands power, the more powerless she feels. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Insecurity breeds control. Control breeds conflict. Conflict confirms her belief that the world is against her. It's not sadness inside her, it's resentment. Resentment is more corrosive than grief. Grief mourns what was lost. Resentment blames the world for taking it. This explains why Karens resist change. They fight new pronouns, customs, social norms, not because these harm them, but because they symbolize a world no longer designed with them at the center. She claims society is too sensitive, too politically correct. What she's really saying is, I no longer control the narrative. That terrifies her. She masks this fear with moral outrage. She invokes rules, policies, fairness, but only when they serve her. When these same rules protect others, she grows furious. To her, equality feels like oppression, because it removes privileges she assumed were permanent. The unspoken truth: she doesn't want fairness, she wants exceptionalism. There's also performative anger. A Karen doesn't just get upset, she wants to be seen getting upset. Rage is her theatre. She performs indignation like others perform compassion. The raised voice, accusatory finger, phone camera, pulled out for leverage, not safety. Her meltdowns aim to humiliate, not resolve. Yet beneath lies a human need, the need to matter. She wants to matter in a world that's moved on. In a society glorifying youth, embracing diversity, questioning privilege, she feels stranded in the past. Her identity was built on a version of reality that no longer exists. She mourns its death, not with tears, but with rage. We can't ignore race. Many Karen incidents involve white women weaponizing discomfort against people of color. This isn't incidental, it's integral. Her entitlement isn't just personal, it's structural. She's inherited the belief that her discomfort is more valid than another's existence. That she can summon authority manager, police, HOA, and expect to be believed, protected, obeyed. This isn't just psychological, it's historical. The legacy of power systems, where her archetype was always the beneficiary. When that system fails her, when people no longer flinch, when cameras turn on her, she's thrown into disarray. The power she wielded effortlessly now reflects her behavior back, unfiltered and permanent. She doesn't like what she sees. Understanding the Karen isn't about sympathy, it's about deconstruction. We must examine her entitlements mechanism. What drives it, sustains it, and what happens when it collapses. At its core, the Karen identity is a false self, a constructed persona masking deep inadequacy. This isn't someone rooted in truth, but in performance, performing correctness, superiority, final authority. It's not confidence, it's a desperate need to never feel wrong. Herein lies the psychological danger. When someone can't tolerate being wrong, they can't tolerate growth. The ego becomes too brittle for contradiction, too defensive for truth. The Karen rots from within, not from malice, but stagnation. She can't update her software. She runs on expired belief systems about gender, class, race, authority, and worth. Instead of evolving, she doubles down. The past becomes her religion. Back when people had manners, when kids respected elders, when the world made sense. What she means, back when I felt powerful. Her rigidity rebels against relevance. In a world moving toward complexity, she seeks simplicity, roles, obedience. The Karen doesn't want mutual understanding, she wants to win. To dominate interactions, flatter nuance under her certainty. That's why arguments with Karens aren't about resolution, they're about submission. She doesn't want agreement, she wants you to yield. To accept her truth as universal, her standards as moral, her dissatisfaction as justifying your silence. She's not just angry, she's moralizing her anger. To her, manners aren't about respect, they're about hierarchy. When you don't conform to her civilized behavior, it offends her not because it's wrong, but because it disempowers her. Your refusal to be controlled becomes an existential threat. This explains why Karen outbursts often occur in public spaces, restaurants, lobbies, parking lots. These shared environments don't belong to her. That's the problem. When she can't possess a space, she tries to police it. It's not about rules, it's about whose rules get enforced. Many Karens display an external locus of control, believing their problems come from external forces, never internal patterns. When things go wrong, it's always someone else's fault. The late delivery, stupid policy, rude teenager, incompetent agent. Never, I overreacted. Never. I was disrespectful. Never. I need to reflect. Reflection would mean acknowledging she's not always right. For someone whose identity depends on self-righteousness, that's unacceptable. So she rewrites the story. In her mind, she becomes the victim, modern society's martyr. You can't say anything anymore. People are too sensitive. I'm just speaking truth. What she calls truth is often entitlement with better branding. This victimhood isn't harmless, it's weaponized. She uses it to justify cruelty, mask prejudice, avoid accountability. The Karen doesn't feel guilty when lashing out. She feels justified. Her logic is circular. I feel disrespected. Therefore, you're disrespectful. Because you're disrespectful, I can punish you. It's not reason, it's retaliation disguised as reason. Many Karens are women promised empowerment but handed performance. Society told them to be confident within molds, independent but agreeable, to speak up without making others uncomfortable. So they carved power the only way they knew, becoming guardians of norms. They couldn't control systems, so they policed behavior. Couldn't own institutions, so they dominated interactions. That's why many Karens act like self-appointed referees of public morality. They monitor dress codes, tones, social cues. Perceived disrespect, not from virtue, but because judging makes them feel safe. When that power stops working, they panic. When someone stands up to a Karen calmly and firmly, it often escalates not from aggressive confrontation, but because it reveals her lack of control. Nothing threatens the Karen more than realizing her authority is imaginary. She may cry, call police, accuse abuse. This isn't just manipulation, it's psychological collapse. The power illusion breaks, and with it, her constructed self. Sometimes Karens aren't just enraged, they're humiliated. Humiliation turns to vengeance. Not against the system that failed them, but against whoever exposed them. This makes the Karen archetype dangerous. It's not just rudeness, it's fragile power in decline. Fragile power doesn't fade quietly, it thrashes, accuses, destroys. Yet Karens serve a cultural function. They represent a dying worldview where dominance equals value, where authority comes through fear rather than compassion or competence. They're the last gasps of a system that promised certain people they'd always be on top, now watching that promise dissolve. Like fading empires, they don't go gently, they go loudly. The Karen isn't new, just visible now. Phone cameras are her reckoning. The internet her mirror. She can no longer bully privately. The world watches and judges. Unlike the past, where shame could be buried, today it's archived. Will she change? Probably not. Change requires surrender. Surrender requires humility neither accessible to the Karen mind. Dismantling her psychology means questioning everything her self-worth relies on. It means asking, what if I'm not better? Not owed? What if I'm just human? For the Karen, humanity isn't enough. So she clings to the myth, yells louder, demands more, doubles down. But inside, fear remains. If I'm not exceptional, who am I? Perhaps that's the most terrifying question. Because it means the Karen, despite all her noise, tantrums, entitlement, isn't confronting the world. She's running from herself.